Hey friends, Ira Schofel here, warchant.com. There's not video with this interview, unfortunately. The technology gods, sometimes they're on our side, sometimes they're not on our side. We did this interview, and it's a great interview. I think you're going to enjoy it. But the video kind of got hung up during it, and it just was weird to present it with the video at all. So we're just going to go without the video. I think Ben's going to throw in some photos of Kez McCorvey, so you'll see what Kez looked like, and you can imagine that he's talking to you on video, but he is not. Kez McCorvey, for people watching this, I'm sure most of you guys know, was a 4-year starter at Florida State at wide receiver for in the early 1990s. Came in 1990, redshirted, then started from 91 to 94. So obviously he was on the 1993 national championship team, was Charlie Ward's top target, went on to All-America honors. If you look in the record books at Florida State all-time wide receivers, he's got, I think, the third or fourth highest or best receiving season for a wide receiver in FSU history, and then another one in the top 20. Um, he's number four all time in the FSU record books for receiving behind just three guys named Rashad Green, Ron Sellers, and Peter Warwick. So it's pretty good company there. He's in the FSU Hall of Fame. He was inducted in 2005, and he went on to play in the NFL and had a journey from there into the CFL and football in Europe, and then years in coaching as well. And he's lived in Tallahassee now for probably the last 20 years, 25 years since his playing days. And so we talk a lot about his journey growing up in Mississippi, how he became an athlete, his young rivalry with Terrell Buckley, who obviously went on to be a great Nole and FSU star, NFL star as well. Kind of their relationship, their rivalry, uh, and kind of what led Kez to his position now is the director of Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and we kind of get into his journey into his faith as well. So I really enjoyed this. Like I said, I think you'll be able to tell it as you listen to the interview. I wish you could see it. You'd see, the gleam in my eye. It's one of those things. Kez McCorvey is one of these people that when you talk to him and you walk away, you just feel, I think, better about things. And so I'm glad to have him on. I hope you enjoy the conversation. And we'll have some notes underneath the video and also at warchant.com with some links to his FCA work and the 7-on-7 football team he's leading. So I appreciate it. Sorry the video didn't work. We'll work out the kinks next time, but I hope you enjoyed the interview. So Kez, people that are watching this, obviously, probably a lot of people that are not watching this know your history of Florida State. 4-year starter, member of the Hall of Fame. I think you had two of the greatest receiving seasons in school history. You're all over the record book. People need to. I don't know if people break out record books like they used to, but you're all up in that record book. And for your career at Florida State, and obviously went on playing the NFL, and you've coached on the college, pro, and high school levels. You do all this great work with the FCA, and you're around Florida State a lot. So people around Florida State interact with you a lot. But I don't know how many people know your story, kind of your upbringing, where you came from, what led you to Florida State. So I was hoping we could kind of start there, growing up in Mississippi, and what that was like, and what your athletic background was before you became a Florida State recruit.
Okay, let's get it then. Well, I love my time at Florida State too as well, and I'm not I'm too far away from here too as well. I remember when I got to Florida State, some of the people asked me about being so far from home, and I would say if you get on I-10, go west about 4.5 hours, I'm at home, so it's not very far. And so I grew up in a little small town in Mississippi. I went to Pascagoula High School. All right. And so I went to Pascagoula High School, lived in Goshen, but I grew up in a small town called Three Rivers. And we ain't got no rivers. We ain't got no rivers in Three Rivers, but that was the name of the town. It was a small, very small rural town in Mississippi. And I grew up on a farm. I grew up like right next to my grandmother's house, grandfather's house. And he was a farmer. He farmed. He didn't do it professionally, but he had us doing it. We were all forced to go and dig potatoes and all that kind of farm stuff. And so I enjoyed it. I had a cousin. I grew up in a competitive family community, and I had a cousin. He was like the neighborhood Michael Jordan, and he would whoop me in basketball all the time, and I hated it. But But that's where I got some of my competitive desires from. I just hated to lose and was competitive and wanted to win, and so I get that from him primarily. And then I started playing sports when I was, I think, 7. My mother had a friend that she went to school with who asked her, hey, you got a son 7, won't you let your son play t-ball for me? And my mother at first she was kind of hesitant because I was hard headed, and she said, I don't know if I want to give this hard headed boy anything, but my grandmother convinced her, won't you let Petty play some ball, right? And maybe that keep him out of devilment. That was her word. She used that word devilment. And so they decided to let me play some t-ball, and I fell in love with it. T-ball was my first love as far as sports concerned, and then I enjoyed playing for my coach at the time, my first coach, Eddie Trammell. And so I enjoyed playing for him, and he made it enjoyable for me. And so I clung to t-ball and baseball and played for him for a couple of years. Long story short is I ended up moving away, and I moved to a place called Gaucher, right? Now, so if you ever looked on those game day programs when I was playing, say Gaucher, and so that's where I grew up. And a bunch of the old Seminoles grew up in that same area. And, it was a highly competitive, a lot of athletes. And so Terrell Buckley, Mario Edwards, we all grew up in the same neighborhood.
Wow.
We all grew up in the same neighborhood, and I was not a football player at all. I was not a football player at all. I get to town, and I'm in the 5th grade, and one of the first persons I meet is Terrell Buckley, and we did not get along together. We did not. And so, so we did not get along together, me and Terrell, and so we were always competing against each other. If it was baseball, if it was basketball, if it was whatever sport we were doing, we were always competing against each other, and so we didn't like each other. We didn't like each other a lot, and so. But I'm in a competitive area, competitive community, and then I remember my first time playing football, because before that I was a baseball player and didn't really play football. My mother would not let me play football, and so I remember after school one day, and I think in the 7th grade, the spring of 7th grade, and my friends we were walking home, and they went to football practice, and I was like, where y'all going? He said football practice. And I said, well, I'm going too. And so I go out to football practice, and you get out there, and the coach says, hey, you need a parent permission form, and you need a doctor's what do you call it, a doctor's physical form. And so he gives me the letter, he gives me the paperwork, and I go outside. About 30 minutes later, you come back inside, you got your paperwork together. Right, you can't get no physical form or no paperwork in 30 minutes, but I don't think it mattered. but the next thing you know, I'm playing football. First time playing football. Don't know how to put my helmet on. Don't know how to put my pads on or nothing. And my first position was nose tackle. So I'm a receiver now, but my first position was nose tackle. And I remember my first day of practice. I told you, me and Terrell did not get along, and so we get out there, and we're doing this drill where you got you on your back, and the coach blows the whistle. You flip over, and one person has the ball, and he's the ball carrier, and one other person has to tackle him. Well, Terrell has the ball. He turns over, and I run right at him, not knowing how to tackle. Right, he puts his helmet right in my chest. Right in the chest, and he runs me over, and I'm grabbing for his feet as he's stepping over my face, grabbing for his feet. Now I remember I called him, and I talked to him. I said, now I remember why was the best football player on the team going against this first year guy? That usually doesn't make sense. It's usually, you put the guys that are similar to go together, right? And I asked him, I said, why were you going against? I know why you were going against me. You asked coach, can you go against me so you can do exactly what you did, put your helmet in my chest. And he said, no, that's not true. That's not true. I said, yeah, right.
So he well, real quick on T-Buck, like, so, I mean, I've only known him as a grown man, as a professional athlete, then as a coach, and he's got that swag about himself? Like, I mean, he's a confident dude. So he was like that as a 7-year-old?
He was like that as a kid. Terrell Buckley, as a, and I met Terrell in the 5th grade, right?
Okay.
So when I first I met him, I said he had his collar popped, his collar's up. He's walking around. He's the coolest thing in the school, right? And he's the same confident guy as a 5th grader as he was an adult. It was amazing for me to see. I mean, and we played baseball together too as well. He would steal home. He would do stuff that nobody else would think to do. Terrell would do it because
Wow.
he just had it. He just had the confidence to do those type of things. I mean, I don't know where, I don't know how, but he just always had that's his personality. And so, and I hated it. I hated it. And so we got plenty of scuffles and competitions against each other, which made each one of us better. And
Right.
so yeah, I played middle school ball and was probably the 20th best player on the team, but my friends were there, and so I wanted to play with my friends, and so I stayed out and played football, and then we played through middle school, and then got to high school. 10th grade year, back then 10th grade was you go to high school.
Right.
And 10th grade year, I'm going on the team, right? And actually we have a pretty good team. Shane Matthews is the quarterback of the team. He's a senior, and they got a bunch of great defensive players, and Terrell's on the team too. He's one of the defensive backs, and then and they had a bunch of great, really great football players on that team. I mean, I think we had like 13 guys signed that was that year that signed scholarship that year, not the whole time, but that year that signed. And so it was a very talented team, and I think we were ranked number 12 in the nation at that time. And I remember joining the team and not thinking I was going to play at all, and really that whole year didn't play. I think we had like 9 or 10 shutouts that year, and I mean nobody scored on us. I mean, and then we had offensively we could score points too as well. So we were really, really good. And I would be on JV, and the JV used to have the gray jerseys, and we would have a song called "The Gray Don't Play." The gray don't play. No, we don't play. The gray don't play. No, we don't play. No, we didn't play. So we would play on some JV games. And we would have some, and they didn't bother teaching us the plays, So we would play in the game, and we wouldn't score any points. We only scored points on, and I think I was the one probably doing the point scoring, but we scored on halfback pass. So every game we would run probably a halfback pass, and I would catch the halfback pass, and we would win the game or whatnot. So it wasn't highly advanced offense.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the 10th grade, and we are in the playoffs, and we hadn't come close to losing the game all year long. And we are in the 3rd round of the playoffs, the game before the state championship game. I remember that was the first game where we had any competition. We're playing that team. I think it was Warren Central or some other team. We're playing that team, and it's raining. All right, and I'm sitting on the sideline by the juice, like I'm supposed to be, with the rest of the JV players, and we're watching the game, dressed out but not playing. And I remember early in the game, one of the receivers got hurt, and I'm thinking to myself, man, that's gonna be tough on us. Kyle just got hurt, and then we're in the game and we're losing. It's raining. We're losing for the first time. I think we're down by 4 points, and we are struggling to produce offense. And I just remember sitting on the sideline next to the juice again, and I'm watching the game, and another receiver gets hurt. I'm like, wow, okay, well, we in trouble. We don't have anybody to put in the game. And then the coach says, McCorvey. And I'm like, what? He said, you're in the game. And I said, oh, what? I had played the whole year of varsity at all. And coach, 4 minutes ago in the game, we're down by I think 4 points or something like that. I don't know how much we were, but we were down. And I get into the game, right? And I'm thinking, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't even know the plays. And I get into the game, and and Shane Matthews in the huddle looks right at me, and he says, halfback pass to Kez on 1. And I'm looking around like, what in the world's going on here? Say, who does that? You ain't played the whole year, and the very first play you get in the game, all right, of the state, the South State champ, or the region of the semifinals,
Mhm.
all right, the very first play you get in the game, they call the play to you, halfback pass to Kez. And I'm in shock, right? And Shane looks at me and he says, halfback pass to Kez on 1. And he looks at me and he says, catch it. And I go out there, line up. 10th grader ain't played the whole year. I go out there, pretend to block, and hoping that he would just trigger up. He doesn't, and I start running. And I run down the field. And I start to look up in the sky, and all I see is rain. And then all of a sudden, I see this brown piece of rain. And it's coming down, and I dive, and I catch it.
A diving catch?
I dive, and I catch that thing in the
Wow.
mud. 47 yards down the field. We go on to win that game and win the state championship. The next week, I'm in the state championship game. I'm starting. Shane Matthews is telling me to run, what play to run because I didn't know the offense. So every play, Shane would say, Kez, you're blocking this play. All right, such and such play. Kez, you're running a comeback on this play. All right, and we go on to win the state championship. And so from that point on, it was assumed that I would be the next great football player.
Mhm.
But that didn't necessarily happen. All right, I come back the next year. I had plenty of the anticipation, the promise, but I didn't keep any of those promises. The next year we had a good season. Terrell dominates. My goodness, you saw some of the plays that he made on the. I mean, Terrell had. I think he had like maybe 9 or 10 touchdowns.
So he's playing both ways all the time?
No, he didn't play both ways. That's
Mhm.
amazing. He had 9 or 10 touchdowns, and he didn't play on offense.
What?
Yes. Yes. With kickoff return, punt returns, and interception returns.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. So he was our offense on defense. And so we on offense, we underachieved so bad. We just, Shane Matthews left and went to UF.
Right.
And we didn't necessarily have a quarterback. And so we struggled on offense, something fierce. And I struggled too as well. I didn't do anything. And so the year before I had all this promise and then this next year, man, you just kind of did nothing. And so the season ended and you end up trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing. We still got a good team. And I remember I had a tragedy that happened to me. Honestly, I had a situation. My sister, I had an older sister. She was 2 years older than me, and she ended up passing away.
Oh, wow.
During spring football, and I'm having a killer spring football. I'm killing everybody, and then I had a tragedy happen, and then all of a sudden I'm not as motivated as I would have been otherwise. And so I remember just not putting a whole bunch of effort working out, not preparing myself, not seeing any opportunity in football. Just didn't see it, didn't know what was out there or possible opportunity. But I remember I was in class one day. And the teacher came into class. My Spanish teacher came into class, and he had a Bobby Bowden camp brochure. Now, it was nothing significant about that camp brochure because every year our team, we would send probably 50 guys to come to the Bobby Bowden football camp. And so it was nothing significant about it, except that I got my camp flyer brochure in class. I had gone to the camp the year before, right? But I got mine in class, and the teacher took it to the front of the class and said, I have a letter from Kez McCorvey from Florida State University. And all my classmates clapped, clapped and everything. And I was so proud of that thing. But for some reason, I thought, okay, man, my goodness, Florida State wants me. Florida State didn't want me. They didn't know I existed, really. They wanted me to come to camp and bring that $395. That's what they wanted. But for me, it had some significance. It meant something. It meant somebody wants you. And I left that class with that in the back of my mind. there's an opportunity there. And I remember going to football practice, and by that time it's the end of the school year, and at that time what you do is you do the testing, you do the 40-yard dash, you do the bench press, squats, and everything like that. And we were doing testing, and I went out there, and I hadn't been doing a whole lot, and so I tested poorly. I tested poorly because I hadn't been doing a whole lot, and I wasn't a blazer anyway. And so we went out there and ran 40s, and I went out there and ran an embarrassing 40, so embarrassing that it shook me, and it shook me, and it shook me so much to where it made me start doing some drastic things, like, kids, you need to go to the weight room and lift weights. You need to stop messing around and hanging around with your friends that are not doing the things you need to do.
Right.
And so I started to focus myself, and that whole summer I worked out every day, all day long. And actually I had some more motivation as well. There was a receiver in I think Sports Illustrated, and he was the only high school receiver to ever be in Sports Illustrated at that time. His name was Andre Hastings.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They said, yeah, and
He
they
went
said
to Georgia.
yeah, he went to Georgia, and they said Andre Hastings is the only receiver in high school that has any pro potential. When I heard that, now I'm a 0-star at the time, right? When I heard that, I was incensed. I was like, how dare you disrespect me? And so by the end of the summer, I'm in the best shape of my life. I work out so much. I prepare myself. I make so many sacrifices to work out. And I know I'm in the best shape of my life. So I go to camp. I get to that camp, and I remember getting to camp, with the idea of just going out there and just destroying. And then Andre Hastings at that camp as well.
At the Florida State camp?
Yeah, he was at the camp as well. And so we get there, and it's like one of those, we don't know each other. Well, he don't know me, but it's like two alpha dogs can smell the testosterone on the field, And so I knew, okay, you open up, and we're not gonna compete against each other, but you're gonna see that I'm the top guy. And I remember getting out there and running my 40, and I remember Mickey Andrews asked me about, he said in his Mickey Andrews voice, McCorvey, you gonna get down in your 3-point stance? And I said, Coach, this is how I play ball. I got my 2-point stance, and I ran me a 4.5.
All right.
There. Yeah. And then I get to the football field, and they got like DBs from everywhere, and I tear them jokers up. I tear them jokers up. I mean, I just tear them up, and it's like, everybody's looking over there and seeing, okay, who is this guy?
Right.
Who is this guy over here that's destroying the camp? And I remember one of the reporters out there too as well. One of the reporters, my coach John Eason asked him. He said, "You think you hot stuff, don't you? You think you smart, don't you? All right. So if you think you're so smart, who do you think the All-American receiver is?" And Coach Eason said, who do you think the All-American receiver is? And so the reporter says, he took about a day. He watched the practices, and he said, well, that kid with the red 47 jersey, that's the All-American. And Coach Easton said, I see what you know. That ain't the All-American. This is the other kid over here. At the end of the camp, by the end of the camp, he said, hey, your kid can play too. But at the end of that camp, John Easton stopped me as I walked past him. He said, McCorvey, you got a scholarship if you want it. And I was just like, is that how it's done? Is that easy?
You had a good camp though, man.
I did. I killed that camp. I remember one incident at camp too. Is all the coaches were talking about me, right? And then Coach Bowden drove out in his golf cart, and he drove right to the 707 field. And I thought to myself, this is my chance right here. This is my chance. All right. And then so they called the play, and all the coaches would say, hey, Coach Bowden, you need to watch this kid right here. You need to watch this McCorvey kid over here. And Coach Bowden stopped in his golf cart and looked behind him, like, with a half cigar in his mouth, right? Looked behind him to watch the play. And I was running like a 5-yard dig, and the quarterback threw the ball behind me. And then when it hit the ground, as soon as it hit the ground, Coach Bowden turned his head, got in his car, hit the gas, and drove off. I thought, God, I have my chance. I have my chance, and I just missed it. Oh
man!
But later on in camp, they offered me a scholarship. But that was, to me, that was the start. And and I went back home and didn't do great. We didn't necessarily have a quarterback, and I don't know if I played great either. But at the end of that season, they were true to their word. They kept their word as far as their scholarship is concerned. I had one offer, and then by the end of the season, I had two. I had two offers, and then right before I signed, I had a bunch of offers come in because people heard that Florida State was going to sign me. So
Wow.
a bunch of teams.
Let me ask you this, man. So raising kids, one of my daughters played basketball, and so just watching it from an adult's perspective, she played through high school, and one of the biggest issues I always felt like with her was, how do you get confidence, and because I thought she was better sometimes than she thought she was. And I'm curious, like, even I get that you went and started working out and got in great shape. Was that what gave you confidence to go into that camp and think you're the guy? Because you really hadn't been doing it on the field in high school. So where did that confidence come from?
Well, I hadn't done it in the game, but I'd done it on the field.
Right.
Yeah, I had done it on the field, and so guess what? Sometimes, guess what? It's a combination of things, right? It's a combination of I've done the work. I put so much work in to where I knew I was better than the guy. Like the guys I was competing against at my school, I'm killing them.
Right.
Yeah, I'm killing them. And then a guy that I used to go against is at college. He's in college right now playing.
Right.
I can play, right? And
Right.
And so I knew I could play. Yeah, I knew I could play. I knew I was pretty good football player, but nobody else knew
Right.
I was a pretty good football player.
So in practices, are you going up against T-Buck back then? Like, what was that like?
Ever since the 5th grade. And I mean, and so what that was like is right. Terrell is a mutant. I'm serious. Terrell Buckley is a mutant. Terrell Buckley squats 500 pounds and runs a 4.2 in the 40 in high school. Terrell Buckley has instincts like I've never seen before, in awareness, body spatial awareness like nobody else has. He has the ability to snip things out like nobody else. He has the ability to focus in stressful situations. I mean, like stuff he would do that you don't think to do. You wouldn't have the guts to do.
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't have the guts to catch a punt and sit there for a second and then go. He didn't do that. The first time he did that wasn't in college. That was in high school.
Really?
Actually, it was in middle school. It was in middle school. I mean, the run by the running back and don't tackle him, but just snatch the ball out of his hands as you run the opposite way. When the running back's running 50 yards, running the opposite way. That's Terrell.
Right.
So Terrell is a mutant. So he got here to Florida State. People were saying this and that. I said, no, no, this guy here different. This guy here is a mutant. He got mutant powers basically. But every once in a while I would get Terrell because I had some things that I did well. I'm super shifty and elusive, right? I'm super quick, with great body control. And so if I managed not to give Terrell too much information, right, or let him see the quarterback's drop, I got a chance to beat him, right? But if he saw the quarterback's drop, or you gave him, or you gave him a tail or something like that, he was gonna make you pay. He's gonna embarrass you. And so we had some really good competitions.
I bet. And then they carry over to Tallahassee. You get Florida State, and he's older than you already. But those you've put some clips on social media through the years of some of your practice plays and things like that. The DBs you're going up against at Florida State in practice, like, did you realize right away that this isn't normal? Because you're going up. I mean, it probably didn't matter who you lined up against. It was a pro. What was that like coming in as a freshman and just trying to figure it out going up against that competition?
I'll tell you what, this is what happened right here. I came to school early, right? Because I was trying to stay out of trouble, Mississippi. Came to school early, slept on Lawrence Dawsey and Terrell Buckley's couch. The couch smelled like feet. It smelled like feet. But I get in there, right? And so everybody's hanging out, right? And so some guys come over and they show their high school highlights. That's what everybody does. They come and they show their high school highlights. Mine were terrible. I had 300 some yards in high school. I did not have a whole bunch of high school highlights. And then I grew up with Terrell, and so I knew he's a mutant, right? And so you see his highlight film is like crazy. But then these other guys would bring, Ant Lee would bring his highlight film, and I saw his, and I'm like, good Lord, he's a mutant. And then Eric Terrell, at the time, he was the all-time punt return leader. He brought his highlight film. I'm like, oh my goodness, another mutant, And so so that was the only time I doubted when I saw everybody's highlight. I said, my goodness, is everybody here a mutant? Has everybody here got special, powers or something like that they can, do amazing stuff? Because I don't know if I have that. Mine was more subtle of the things I could do. And then we get to the football. Before we get to the football field, I get something that snaps me out of it. We're down in the atrium, all the freshmen, and then some of the guys have been here for the summertime. And so a couple of guys walk down the stairs. Is three guys. I think it was Tiger McMillan, William Floyd, and Corey Fuller. And they loud and obnoxious walking down the stairs, right? And they come down, and I'm trying to hide because I don't have the stats that the rest of the guys have, right? Everybody else is an All-American, All-State. I'm All-District, right? All-District Kez McCorvey. And so I'm trying to hide, right? I don't want Coach Bowden to notice that he made a mistake, Coach Bowden, getting this guy. But then I hear a voice from the stairs, because nobody really knows me, who I am. I didn't come up there in the summertime. And this voice says, hey, you that receiver, right? I was like, I'm like, I didn't say anything. And it's Corey Fuller. He said, yeah, you that receiver. He said, I'm gonna jam your face off. And when he says that, my heart immediately, first of all, I'm embarrassed, but then my heart is like, I'm gonna destroy you. I don't know what I'm gonna do at Florida State, but guess what? I'm gonna destroy you. And when I got to that football field, first of all, it was hot. It's hotter in Tallahassee than any other place. And so I'm it's heat exhaustion, hot. But the second thing is when I got to that football field and I got in front of those guys running routes, I would tell them, I say, you know what? I'm the number one D, because Clifton Abraham was number one, Corey Sawyer was number two, and then Corey Fuller was like number 4 or something like that. I would tell them, I said, guys, I am now the new number one DB in the nation right now. Like, I'm whooping all of y'all. But that's, but what happened is, some of the things I could do in high school, they were now in a position where they could be taken advantage of.
Right.
Yeah. My ability to stop and start and change direction, which Terrell hadn't saw. He hadn't saw me develop into that. So I remember when I first got to school, finally got to school, he said, I was running routes against him. He's like, man, hey, man, where'd that come from? I used to seeing this. Where'd that come from? I said, I got better. But I got to Florida State, and when I got there, it was still awkward because I could move. I was quick, and and then they put me into the boundary, but you wouldn't get no balls. But I was getting off the jam real good though. But I had some skills that were kind of set me up for the future of where football was going.
So when I watch highlights of you playing, or we're relatively the same age, although you look a lot younger. But when I would watch you play, it looked kind of effortless. And like when you're out there now, you work with young receivers today, and it's like, when I watch you like making cuts and showing receivers how to make cuts and stuff like that, it looks like you were born to do that. Like, how much of that was taught to you and how much of that was just, you just kind of got it instinctively? And can you give it to other guys? Because there's tons of fast receivers out there. There's tons of tall dudes who can run, but like, how much of that knack is, God given, and how much can be taught?
Well, I don't know if it's God given at all, really. If you ask me, Kez, what is your thing that you do well? Is I see and examine well. I'm a very good visual learner, and then I'm the type of guy that takes apart the television set to see how it works.
Right.
And so, me being a blessing of being around really good athletes, I was around a bunch of good athletes. I could look at what they were doing, and figure out how they were doing it, where other people were not interested in figuring out how they do it. How do you cut? What makes you give you the ability to cut? You got to be able to load the knee, ankle, the hips. You got to align the joints right here. You got to be able to apply pressure in the same position right here. You got to be able to have your arms coordinated with your body to be able to push you in that angle direction too as well. And so I had the ability to be able to understand that, and so I could practice it. I can practice it efficiently. And so I was willing to do that. And I could practice. And then once I practice efficiently enough times, I could do it without thinking about it.
Gotcha. Yeah,
And
no,
so,
it's interesting. And I guess the term coachable comes down to you could tell guys to do it, but then whether or not they actually really want to learn it and then apply it, I guess is a
yeah,
challenge. Because I always ask you, because you come to Florida State practice all the time, and I'll ask you about different receivers, and it seems like you're positive about everybody, but um, I'm sure there are guys you talk to and you try to help, but it just doesn't sink
yeah.
in. Or
Absolutely. You know what? And this is the thing right here too. I think you do have to be coachable, because I think some people are visually coachable. They can look at things and pick it up. Some people you can tell and speak, and they're open to be able to hear. And some guys are just not open, right? They already got it, or they don't, or they missed a step in the developmental process of how to be coached. I think that sometimes that's bad. Some guys are so talented to where they don't need that.
right.
And those guys usually miss it on the back end because they don't know how to get additional resources, right? You get to college, guess what? You think you got all the resources you're going to need, but guess what? You being 6'4" and 200 pounds and run 4.3 is not enough. Now, do you know how to go back to the well and get additional resources to help you improve, become a better football player? Some guys don't know the process of going to get it. What they got is what they got.
Hmm.
And so those, you would love to have those guys, but you also have love to have those same guys that know how to go back and ask for help, go back and be coachable, understand the principles behind the position, because this science is really, it's angles and leverage. All right, it's body positioning, it's biomechanics. Being a good route runner is all that kind of stuff. And if you don't understand a little bit of that stuff, you're gonna eventually your talent is gonna not be enough to help you to be the best you could be.
When being around you as much as I've been able to out of Florida State, one of the things I always tell people about you when you come up is that I just feel like there's just a positivity around you, man. Like it's when you talk to Kez, it's like I always feel good after I talk to you, and I feel like you bring like I'm not just telling you this because you're here, man. Like I really tell this to people all the time that there's just a positivity about you. And I was curious, have you always had that? And obviously faith is a huge part of your life. Was that always there? Did you grow up with faith? Kind of how did you become that way? Not talking about the football Kez, but just
Yeah.
the man Kez.
No, I think that is recent. I think because if you ask me, people ask me now about your history of playing football at Florida State, period. And I think my motivation for playing football was different than my motivation when I changed my life. I became a Christian in 1990, I think 1997,
So
going into
after you were done playing here.
after I've done playing here, right? And so, and that had a profound change on my life and my outlook and then how I viewed football too. Because before that, I viewed football. Football was a resource to help me find value in myself.
Mhm.
It did. And so if I played good, I felt good. If I played bad, I didn't. I felt bad. And so I was always on a roller coaster as far as football is concerned. And so my emotions and my self value was determined by how I played, right? And even and I played on a great team, right? I don't remember the record, but we got a lot of wins,
Yeah.
a lot of wins, and I caught a lot of balls. And so even with that success, I still had times where that wasn't even enough, right? You won the national championship, it's not enough. You catch 200 yards and a half, that's not enough, right? You catch 3 touchdowns, it's not enough. And so in 1997, my life changed to where I had got to the point to where it just got so much to where I knew that that lifestyle, me, having football be the key determinant of my value, was not good enough for me.
Hmm.
And so a friend of mine was on the team, a guy named Glenn Milburn. He was a returner. He played for Stanford, played running back. He came and he was in the locker room, and I saw him have peace in the NFL locker room
So this is when
on,
you're still with the Lions.
with the Lions. And so I
Okay.
saw, through the ups and downs, and the Lions always got ups and downs now. And so, and through the ups and downs of being a Lion, I saw him have peace, and You know, and I recognized it too. I said, you know what, he's one of them Christian guys. Because I grew up with it at my own home with my grandmother and family. And then I grew up in Florida State with Coach Bowden, and I recognized it. Coach Bowden and Coach Rick and Coach Ben Hallinger. And I recognized that. And I recognized that, you know what, maybe that's what I'm missing. And so I followed him to a chapel service before a game and stopped him and talked to him and told him that I want what you got. I want what you got. And he infected me. He infected me with the Holy Spirit. I went to his house and a friend of his preached the gospel and I got saved. I became a Christian. And that changed my perspective on my value. And so I didn't get my value from football anymore. I got my value from somewhere else. And so it don't matter where, it didn't matter what was happening or what bad or good was happening to me. My value was intact. And so I didn't have to worry about, having to get my value from the people around me. I already got my value from somebody. So now I have the ability to give value instead of me having to get it from someone because I'm at a deficit. I have more than enough because I know who I am. Now I'm free to give it to someone else. And so if you ask me why, how, that is, I guess as good as explanation as I could give is I feel like I have the Holy Spirit inside of me through Jesus Christ to be able to always be in a position where I could give instead of being in need of someone to love me.
It's interesting, man, the way you describe it, because you said your strength as an athlete was observing, players and seeing their, that you wanted to be like them, and then you did the same thing, really.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Um, so did you, when your sister passed, how long did that? I mean, I lost a brother. I was a little bit older than you were, and it was ridiculously hard. I can't imagine at that age. How did you come back out of that?
Well, I think football helped me come out of it, really, because before that I was I was so dejected and so hurt. As a kid, you don't know how to even process hurt
Right.
like that. I mean, you end up blaming everybody. Everybody around you is going to get some of this angst.
Right.
That's what I was doing too. I was going to bite everybody around me, and so that's what I was doing. And I was getting rid of everybody around me, and so I don't know if I processed it right, but I believe God knew uh, exactly what I needed, and so he provided that with that little note. That little FSU camp
Right.
brochure refocused me really because
Right.
I really was going in a bad direction. I was getting in trouble because I didn't see value in myself. It wasn't me just getting in trouble, it's because I didn't see value in myself, right? So I started to do unvaluable stuff.
Right.
And so, but when I got that letter, that helped change my perspective and my direction. Now I have a purpose, right? And then that purpose lit a fire under me, right? There's one thing when you have no purpose, right? When you have no purpose, guess what? You're not motivated, you don't do the thing. But when you have purpose, right now, I can lift the mountain because I have purpose. And so that little question there gave me focus and purpose at that time in my life to where now I can put everything I had into that single time. I'm gonna go to this football camp and I'm gonna show these jokers that I can play ball.
Right.
Oh, they got a receiver from Georgia that's coming up there too. He thinks he's the best. Okay, I'm gonna put everything I got into this thing right here, and I'm
So
gonna show you what I
you're
got.
playing angry most of the time.
I played angry my whole career. I
Really?
played with a chip on my shoulder. I practiced with a chip on my shoulder. Every single game. I would when I played at Florida State until after at the end of my career. I really enjoyed the end of my career because I didn't have that. I played good, but I didn't have to have my value attached to the success that I put in the field. And so what it did, it freed me up to play as hard as I can because, I was free to do that. And so I actually played better and I played freer because of that. But when I was growing up though, I played with a chip on my shoulder. It was a chip. And You know, I don't know if you, I had what you call little man disease. So I think I got in the most fights at Florida State with the linemen.
Really?
Yes, I
You
did.
you were you were that guy?
I was that guy. I was that guy that always pushing and getting a free lick on the big guys and then running away. That was me. That was me. And so I did. I had that little man disease, and so but that was that chip that of and making sure that I was valued. Man, I wasn't gonna let nobody tell me or say that I was not valuable, not with their words or with their actions on the football field or nothing. And it helped. It helped. It helped to. It helped. The fun thing about people ask me and say, "Kids, would you trade that? Would you trade that?" I think you can get that without having to have a chip. I think me, the performance is good. Having a chip, always being angry, not being able to enjoy it, not as good.
Right. So when you guys win the national championship, you couldn't sit back and just feel the joy at that point.
I couldn't. I couldn't. The game. It was like what? When once the game ended, the ride is over.
Hmm.
The ride is over. There is no more mechanism for me to show my value until the next go round.
Wow.
There's
Wow.
no more mechanism for me to show my value. In that game, and I don't know if I had a great game either. I mean, I feel like I was killing them, but I think I dropped too many balls in that game. But that there is no more mechanism to show value, right? You're not valuable unless you show it, right? You ever see the kid that comes in and says, "Hey, they gotta ask you, do you love them every 5 seconds? Hey, you love me?
Right.
You love me? I'm unsure now. You love me? Same here. Hey, am I good enough? Let me go. Give me on the football field. I can show you I'm good enough.
Mm.
You gotta have a way of expressing that. And so football was my way of expressing my value.
So after you leave the Lions and you go to the CFL, I mean you have put up crazy numbers up there. But
Yeah.
why did you not play longer? Why did you how did your career end?
Well, and when I was at Detroit too, but like right before I got saved, right before I became a Christian, um, I was the starting receiver for the Detroit Lions.
Hmm.
Started opposite Herman Moore, so I beat out Johnny Morton in camp my third year. New coaching staff. They finally let some of the other older guys go, and I done enough to start. Finally, you should have been starting me all along, right?
Right.
And then I injured my ligament in my foot, so I'm injured. So I played that whole year, injured. I no longer start now because I'm injured, and then I got to sit the bench and I got to watch. I'm on the team still, and I play a little bit special teams, all that kind of stuff, but I'm not the player I was before. I'm
Hmm.
injured, and then I go to NFL Europe and go back over a couple other places, and finally they find out what's wrong with my ankle. All right, kids, you got a torn navicular in your foot. I go have surgery. Right, the doctor fixes my foot. Now I feel better, but now I have this hurt marker on me. So now it's hard for guys don't want to sign me in the
Right.
NFL. And so one of the scouts from the CFL says, "Kez, you just need film. You need to go to
Mm.
Canada and get some film." And so I said, "That sounds rational. They just need to see me play."
Right.
Go to Canada, and I play for the Edmonton Eskimos. And I go up there, and I lead the league in touchdowns, and finally uh, I get a chance to show what I could do. Now I enjoyed myself because I played free,
Hmm.
and I'm healthy. Uh, again, you know, uh, outside of the past 2 years, I'm healthy again. I feel like I'm strong and healthy, and I can play, and I enjoy myself. But my goal was to get back into the NFL.
Hmm.
At the end of that year, and I feel like I could have caught 20,000 touchdowns. I really felt like I could have. I just, I feel like I was dominating. But at the end of the year, they would not let me go. They would not release my contract. And so I had to
Oh
stay there
wow.
another year. I had to stay there another year. And then like maybe the fourth or fifth game of the year, I tear a ligament in my knee, the ACL.
Oh man.
And so you probably shouldn't make life decisions on the table. And so, but I decided that, you know what? I had just come off of 2 years of trying to get back healthy with my foot so I can get back to normal. And then I just got an ACL, so another thing. And so I decided on that table in the locker room on that game that it's time for me to retire.
Wow.
It's time for me to move on. And so I retired right then, right then, and I didn't feel bad about it at all. I really felt okay. I felt like okay, good decision. Time to move on. You know, this has been a stressful life. God gave you opportunity to go out there and show them what you could do a little bit. You know, that you were a pretty good football player. Great. All right. It's time to move on. And so that was really why I decided to move on from playing football. It was, it was highly stressful, having the desire to play NFL football, and then, as soon as you get back healthy, it's still not working out. And so it was just like, you know what, maybe it's time to move on.
How often did you go back after that and question that decision, or did you?
For a little bit, I tried to make it so where I couldn't question it. So when I got back home, this funny thing, I got home off the plane from Canada, September the 11th, 2001. The exact same day that 9/11 hit.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I got off the plane and I'm at my house and I'm looking at TV and I'm wondering, okay, why is this movie on every channel?
Oh man.
What is this movie on every channel? And then I found out that it's not a
Yeah.
movie, it's real.
Wow.
But then I get home and I go to church and I see a couple of people I know from church and they make the suggestion that, hey, we got a business here in town. It's called Titus Sports Academy, and we would like to talk to you about it. And then, long story short, I got two business partners, and we started an organization here, and we trained athletes. And so I did that for about 9 years or 8 years, training athletes. And so that's kind of where it and it did a couple of times before. I think I was at a golf tournament, Brad Johnson's golf tournament, and John Gruden was there, and John remembered me from playing ball, and he was like, "Kez, what are you doing here? Boy, you look good. Why don't you come and play for me? Why don't you come and try out for me?" And for a second in my mind, I thought, "Okay, maybe I will."
Yeah.
And then I started working out, and then after you get those couple of little workouts, you start to realize, okay, now my motivation is not as high because this workout has proven to me that I really don't want to do the work that's necessary to
Right.
play pro ball. But that's when it just kind of really, when I started working out again, it's really hit home.
Right.
No, I don't want it.
Man, that's why I've never obviously clearly played or trained to play sports at a high level, but that's why I was told people like during the season like Florida State just had, where you go 2-10, but you still have to do all the same work to be
Yeah,
2-10. That's always amazing to me. Like with football players, there's been there's a debate. I guess like last year, a couple of basketball players NBA players made comments about how they could play football, and Charles Barkley was like, "No, you couldn't." And to me, of any sport I cover, there's great athletes in all sports, but man, what football players put themselves through, it is different. It's not for everybody. So imagine if the passion's gone, or if it's not where it was,
yeah,
it'd be hard to. You can't fake it.
yeah. Well, and I think for me, I feel like I got a little bit of freedom to where it didn't mean the same.
Right.
It didn't have the same. When I was at Florida State, guess what? I was passionate about winning. I was passionate about my teammates, and it wasn't just football. It was all those things tied together, right? And so you don't realize that as you're going through it, right? That you know what? Oh, I just love football. You want to say I just love football? No,
Mm.
no, I don't just love football. The circumstances, the people make it, right? I loved my coaches. I loved playing in that position. I loved the fans. I loved the history that we had and we were building. I loved the expectations of the season. All those things had a bit to do with it, right? But then when you don't have those things, right, it changes things.
Right.
College football and pro football are not the same.
Right. Well, although college football is starting to become
Of course it is. Yes.
Yeah, a little bit more like that. So you go into coaching when you're playing days. Well, like you did you work with Titus and training
Yep.
athletes, and you guys built a big business there. It's still doing really well. You've coached on the CFL level, college level, high school level. Um, what did you like? You're not right now. You're not doing any of those full time. Which of those did you enjoy the most?
I love
Or
Well, I love coaching. I love teaching. I mean, if you ask me, kids, what do you do the best? I teach. What do you do with the job I have now, which is I work for Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I teach and I coach and I encourage, right? And I try to have vision for the people I'm working with. I still do the same thing. That's the part I love. I love it, but they're different, right? High school football coaching is, it's like beating the hammer. You don't have to have any complex tools, right? Hey, well, hey, coach, let's do something different. No, get that hammer, beat it right there, beat the hammer. All right, coach, let's do this other thing, right? No, we don't need for us to be successful. You just need to tap the hammer every day, and you'll be okay.
hmm,
Now, college and pros is different. College to another level right here. Guess what? You get a chance to now have more complex ideas, concept. The game is a little different, and so you can do more complex. So it's fun. To me, it's funner. It's more fun. I say more fun
right.
because you get a
And,
chance to explore and utilize different strategies and techniques, and I enjoyed it. But guess what? The offset of that is the guys are less coachable because they've been coached a lot before, and so you got to now go in and recruit those guys to be coachable and allow you to coach them and to teach those guys too. So it's mentoring, which they all are. It's expertise in coaching and technique. It's relationship. You're also counseling too as well. And so I love all that piece of it because that's me. I think that's just who I am. So I enjoyed all that piece. And then, but at the different levels, the game is different, and so you get a chance to work on different skill sets.
mhm,
And so you get a chance to open up different bags of your things that right. The high school kids, I never get a chance to open up this other bag over here. This bag right here is collecting dust over here, and you don't get a chance. But when you get some pro guys, guess what? Pull that bag out, boy. Let me show you some of these tricks over here, boy.
right.
You know, and that's fun. So that's the difference of those different levels. Is just and then those guys are grown men too as well. You talk about real life grown men stuff. They got kids
Right.
and and they got families and they got goals and desires too as well. And so it's a different conversation than, but but really it's all the same.
When you know, with your work with the FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, you're the director over an area, and then you've got a staff. I know Ryan Sprague works with you and played at FSU, and you've got a staff of people. So, how much of your job now, though, you're kind of an executive? How much do you still get to talk to individual young men and women and boys and girls at high schools? Like, are you still doing hands-on work, or are you more just the big picture stuff now?
Yeah, I don't think I would ever not do hands-on stuff, right? So I call it cheating. I cheat. I go and I get a chance to go and mentor because that's what it is, right? When you are doing ministry, that's what you're doing. You actually mentoring. You're in proximity. And you have to be in a relationship, and so you're doing that. I get a chance to do that with my staff. I'm mentoring my staff. All right, I hope that's what I'm doing. At least they tell it to my face. That's what I'm doing. And if I get a chance to, I get a chance to mentor to the people I'm in proximity to. And so that's my hope. When I go to Florida State, my hope is to encourage and to mentor the young men that play in that position. And what happens is if we have something in common, like they play receiver, it makes it easier for me to share a message with them because we have some commonality in what we've experienced with playing the same position. But I won't ever. I hope God willing. I hope I won't ever not be in a position to do that wherever I go.
Do you? One thing I'm wondering though, so like as a parent, and we both have kids, you want the best for them, and you kind of live with their ups and their downs, and that's hard enough with your kids. And so when you're working with young people as a coach or as a mentor, and you see them going through things like you went through when you were like, if you deal with a young man who is like you were and played angry, or if you're dealing with somebody that's going through things and you don't reach them, how difficult is that? Because I'm sure you want to win them all. You want to help them all, but I'm sure you don't end up feeling like at that moment. How do you
Yeah.
handle that part of it?
Well, this is the thing right here. I come to the realization that I am not God.
Right.
I am not God, and God is ultimately the person that's going to impact their life. He may use me,
Right.
or he may not use me, and so that is the hard part, right? Because I want to have control over that. I would like to, but then the blessing is that I understand that God ultimately is in charge of and He loves this person more than I do, and so how much do I want to see him change? Is is less than what God wants to see a change. But then I got to trust that what God is looking. God's not this guy's not in his God's blind spot. And God's already seen and He's already made provisions for this young man to be able to experience exactly what God's plan is for his life.
It's good stuff, man. So last thing I wanted to touch on. So you found Christ. You gave your life to Jesus after you played at Florida State. When you came back, what was the reaction from Coach Richt and Coach Bowden? Because I know that was such a big part of their coaching ministry.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
When I came back, I remember I got saved now, and the first person I saw when I got to the facility, I went to the weight room. And I went into the weight room and I found Dave Van Hallinger.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went up to Dave and I told him exactly what happened to me. And we hugged and I cried and because Dave had poured into me. I had a bunch of guys that poured into me, and Dave would come and he would say, "Kez, I love you." He would say that. Now, when he said that the first time he said that, I was kind of taken aback, like, hold on a second, boss. I don't know what type of party you talking about. This ain't that type of party over here.
Yeah.
But I understood after a while that he was saying it from a right position in his heart. And he would say, "Kids, I love you." And he had been trying to sow seeds into me all that time of who Christ was. He's invited me to FCA. I wasn't going at the time, but he had been inviting me to change my life and to be able to see who Christ was, to see it in him all that time. And so after I got saved, I recognized that, and I went to him, and I want to tell him thank you. And so I went and talked to him. And my next stop, I went upstairs and I caught Mark Rick going up to the Coach Bowden's office, and I told him the same thing. Mark, thank you for pouring into my life. All right, and then I got a chance to stop in Coach Bowden's room, and I sit down with him, and I wanted to tell him thank you for all the foolishness that you put up with me. Yes, because and he put up with that foolishness because he saw bigger. He got a piece of what God saw in me, right? If he'd have looked at his own eyes, he'd have saw this hurt kid that's always biting back, But what he saw was he saw what I could be through Christ, and so he was willing to invest in me his time, his energy, all right, his words that were not always received, right, to allow me to go on this journey to find who God is in my life. And so I was so excited to tell him of what his seed had done, right? Because he needed the encouragement as well. And our relationship changed a lot too. And it wasn't because of him; it was because of me. Our relationship changed because I spent more time with Coach Bowden after I got back. After I became a Christian, I spent more time. I would go to the meetings and I would sit in his meetings all the time. And I would sit in his office all the time. When I was a player, I didn't do that. Not because he wouldn't allow it, because I was so afraid because I didn't see myself as valuable enough to go into his office and spend time with him. And so me changing my life, me becoming a Christian helped me to see myself in the right way to now I didn't feel like I was an outsider coming in. I felt like I was an insider and I belonged, right? And it had nothing to do with Coach Bowden. He was always inviting us into his office, but I was just so afraid because I thought of myself as less than. But then when I became a Christian, I saw my value, and I would go up there all the time, and I would sit in the meeting rooms, and I would talk and say, talk about this, talk about that, and spend a whole bunch of time up there. And so it was really freeing. It was really freeing, and our relationship changed too as well. And I got a chance to, and that's one of the ways I got involved with FCA is now I started to be the I would go to places with Coach Bowden and I would introduce him to the crowds that he was speaking to. And so I would go up there and I would get a chance to be able to introduce him. And I would spend times in the car with him and
Oh, wow.
Doug was his friend. Doug would drive him around. I would be in the back seat and I would listen to them two, and they would be talking. Him and Doug would be talking in the front seat, and I'm thinking to myself, this is so fun here. Listen to Coach Bowden talk like a little kid to his buddy, right? You know, I would sit there in the back seat, and it would be him and Doug, and they would talk, and he'd say, Coach Bowden, what story you gonna tell today, Coach Bowden? I said, what story you think I should tell? He said, well, Coach Bowden, I really like the baseball story, Coach. He said, you saw the baseball story? Yeah, Coach, the baseball story is a good one. I think it'll hit right home, Coach. Yeah, okay, I think I'll think about that. I think I'll like, as he's picking up his Orange Crush and his peanuts in the Orange Crush, making it right there. And I'm sitting back and I'm watching this, right? And I loved it. I loved it to see him with his friend as they're going to do ministry together. And I get a front row seat and seeing him being, and that was there all the time, but I was never in position. I never let myself be in a position to enjoy that relationship until afterwards.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you got that time with him. Because not many people did. So that's awesome. Well, Kez, man, I really appreciate your time. And, I meant what I said. I always do feel that joy after I talk to you, and I definitely do today. And I'm glad to hear, some of how you became who you became. And I feel like we're all blessed in Tallahassee to be around you. And hopefully the people watching this will feel the same way. And I've just enjoyed it. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have coming down the road. I know you're involved with the project Charlie Ward's doing out there in the community as well. And look forward to see what that's going to be. And if we can ever help you out anywhere along the way, please let us know.
Absolutely. I got a 7-on-7 team. It's called Playmakers Inc. Right. Okay. So I got about 60 kids that come and play for me on my 7-on-7 team. And we are
60.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And so we'll be out there, come out there. And if we have, I think we might have a couple of local tournaments here, and I'll put it on my Facebook page on my my pages, so you can check it out, guys. So if you want Kez McCorvey on Facebook or Playmakers Inc. on Facebook, check us out, and we'll have some information about some of the games we'll get a chance to play. They're pretty good.
Awesome. And I'll make sure we put in the comments and with the video, people the links to that as well, so people can find it, help them out. So awesome, man. I appreciate it. Hey, hang out for 1 minute when we're done. I got to talk to you about one thing, and but I appreciate your time, Kez.
Thanks, guys.